Okay, I want to talk about Prometheus and who I think Prometheus really is in the movie. Now, I don't believe that it's the engineer at the beginning, because if you know the story about Prometheus, like I explained in my other theory, um, Prometheus, there was mankind already existed. You know, mankind was going through the motions. Mankind already existed, and Prometheus was just the one that, gave man a spark. Gave him fire. Made him more inquisitive. Just upgraded him. You could say. That is who Prometheus is. That doesn't represent the person, the engineer at the beginning. And when you study Prometheus, you start to realize that he has various names. It's not just Prometheus, it's Thoth, it's Enoch, it's Hermes Trismegistus. He has so many names because he is immortal and he incarnates throughout history, you know? So it's quite possible that this is like another engineer, because whenever you see the depictions, because Holloway and Shaw, they show depictions of this person, which is Prometheus, throughout various civilizations. So it's in Egyptian civilization, it's in Mesopotamian, Sumerian, Babylonian, Mayan. It's the same person. Uplifting mankind. And if you know the story about Enoch in the Bible, he was very gifted, very special, and God wanted him to study under him. So in a sense, he became God's right hand man. You could say that that was God's son. So in a sense, his other version, his other name is Jesus Christ. So he incarnates all throughout history in order to push mankind forward. That's what Prometheus does, even to this day. Now, I don't know if I said it, but I think that this is probably like another engineer, because I don't think all the engineers left, the planet, and I don't even know how long they live. You don't even know how long they live. But some engineers could have stayed on the planet, and that was one of the engineers, because this person is always depicted as very, very tall, you know? So it could be this special engineer that was just exceptional among everybody else, and God, which is probably the original engineer. That's in a sense, that's our God. Of course, there's a God, but there's like that's our God in a sense, the original engineer that went into the water and spread his DNA. That's probably his God. Well, that's our God, but that's who Prometheus is learning under. You understand? Because he still exists, obviously, to some extent, that original engineer, but in a different form, obviously. But Prometheus is someone else. That's what I'm trying to explain. That Prometheus is someone else, and I believe Prometheus in the movie is actually David. I believe Prometheus is actually David. So this is another version of Prometheus or Thoth or Enoch or whatever, in the future. Now, the reason why I say that is because there's a similar story. It's a fascinating story in Enoch. No, in Egyptian mythology. In Egyptian mythology, there's Nut, which is like the sky goddess, and Thoth. Now, Thoth liked Nut. I don't know if she felt the same way, but she was into Geb. She liked Geb. And the thing is that, but Thoth liked Nut, and we know that David somehow has a fondness for Shaw. It's like, but it's not really reciprocated, but because she likes Holloway, that's her boyfriend. But she was barren, right? And so was Nut. Nut's, because Ra found out that Nut liked Geb, so he was spiteful, and he said like, no, you can't have children, in 360 days of the year, you can't have children. And that means that she couldn't have children at all, because it was only 360 days of the year at the time. So Thoth found a way to get her pregnant by gambling with the moon, for 5 more days. He won, and then the 5 days were added to the 360, and she had her children. Well, in the story of Prometheus, Shaw was barren. She couldn't have children, and he found a way to impregnate her, or have. Well, it's not the child that she wants, but she was able to give birth. And it's interesting because it's a similar story, and we know that Toth, or David, is very smart, very intelligent, very inquisitive, and he pushes things forward as well, because he's responsible for creating the xenomorph, and he's responsible for the face hugger. And that's what I'm going to explain next, because it's interesting about the face hugger. And I'm going to explain that in my next theory.